Hello, my name is Miss Heather, and today I will be teaching my lesson plan on human anatomy for 11th grade. The first step in this lesson is for the student to find reference pictures using Google. My strong suggestion is for the students to use either male anatomy study or female anatomy study as their key search words. After browsing and finding at least 3 different references, they will create a sketch of the statue in the position they would like with 4 different views: front, back, and both sides. After I review the sketches and offer any advice on the anatomy that the student might need, they will be allowed to begin to work with their clay. At this grade level, they will have already used clay, so after preparing it by getting out the air bubbles and deciding how big they want the statue, they will be allowed to start roughing out the shape of their sculpture. They will be doing this using ovals, rectangles, circles, and cylinders. After this, the students will begin to add details such as muscular structure in the bends and folds of the human skin and body. During this time, I will be walking around and helping any students that need it, or students who are struggling to understand how a shape works within the human body. This will take a long time, and the students will be allowed to bring me any questions or concerns. The focus during this time is for the students to properly understand the original structure of the human body. Having them study the muscular and skeletal structure is an attempt to assure their proportions are right and correct, and whatever movement the students decide to add to the sculpture will be interpreted correctly. Once the students have finished their sculpture and double-checked with me, I'll fire the sculptures while the students are away. After firing the sculptures, they will be given back to the students. Though the student will be allowed to varnish and color the statue however they choose, my preferred method will be to add a marbling effect, such as a Greek statue. To do this, a student will cover the original sculpture in a thick coat of dark walnut varnish over every visible surface. After this layer has dried completely, the students will use a slightly watered-down color of acrylic paint. My suggestion would be a gray or white. They will take a wide, square brush and paint the statue very lightly with soft, small strokes, only enough to barely cover the statue. The paint will react poorly with the varnish, causing it to create a marbled effect as the paint falls and follows the natural pattern of the statue and brush strokes. The statue will be done when the paint is dry. The concept of this lesson plan is for the students to learn more about human anatomy. The ancient Greeks were some of the best artists that lived, and their human statues forever live in infamy. The students creating a work of art that is similar to those famous pieces will not only grow their confidence, but will also help the student understand more about the human anatomy. Having their own statue to look at, and also other students' statues, will give them a broader understanding of the human form, which will be helpful as we move forward with the study of the human form. Having a small amount of motion in the statue will allow the students to understand how the muscular structure of a human bends and shifts with their movements, and how the skeletal structure underneath is a strong base for them to work off of. This goal for this lesson is for the students to hopefully learn how to simplify the human form in both skeletal and muscular stages. Starting with an anatomy study and a rough sketch is much quicker and simpler than a sculpture, and this is an attempt to assure the students are able to simplify the form faster. Moving from a sketch to the sculpture is moving from a 2D to a 3D object, which allows the student to understand not only how the form is modified for the paper, but also how it would actually look if the form were to essentially come alive in their hands. This lesson is allowing the students to dive deeply into the realistic human form and thoroughly understanding their own anatomy as well as others. This will help in further 2D human drawings, as they will be able to better understand how to flatten the 3D object to give the impression they want. Having the statue being in a dynamic position will allow them to understand how the muscles stretch and move under the skin during certain actions. The student creating their own 3D object of the human form in a realistic representation will also help, not only in further realistic drawings, but also in the creation of their own style. Every person's style is based in reality, and the more you understand the realistic form, the better your stylized version will be. In places such as cartoons and anime, you see very unrealistic proportions, but if you understand the underlying realistic structure, then you know exactly how you want to change and distort this version to fit your own desires.